A, we're citing the wrong item to display. That should be a 3. Our column index number should be a 3. That's accurate. We have this item right here too, which is our error checking. It just goes through the entire worksheet and looks for errors. Let's try this error checking again. All right, we've got an error with our VLOOKUP. Do I want help on this error? Do I want to show the calculation steps like we just did? Do I want to ignore the error, or do I want to edit in the formula bar? Do I want to resume? All right, what are my options here? We've just seen this dialog box before. Basically, this button here does the same thing that that little icon here does for us. Trace error is the same thing as tracing the precedents that we had done previously. Circular references are something that we don't have here, but that is always an error in Excel. A circular reference is when the cell that contains your formula is also part of the range of cells that that formula is trying to evaluate. It's a circular reference because you're referencing that cell twice, as the formula and as some of the base information for that formula. Let's remove our arrows. This last item we have here is show formulas. This is pretty neat. It changes all the data to actually be the formulas. And I'm just going to fix this so we don't have our error anymore. So this button right here will toggle you between actually seeing the results of a formula calculation and showing you the formulas. The watch window is pretty fantastic. What it's going to do is it's going to dock itself, or you can actually move it to float around, and you can add formulas into this. Let's see, let's put this formula back in here. All right, add this formula in there, or I could have just selected that and chosen add watch. Add. Okay, so we've got two formulas in here. It's showing us the values. It shows us the formulas also. So as I'm making changes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 9, we'll just do that again. My items are updating. It's not showing us anything except for the fact that this is all the data in that cell. These are how the values are updating for us. Why in the world do we care about that? Well, maybe you're just curious why certain, or how certain cells within your spreadsheet are being affected by just simple data entry that you're making, or maybe you're doing some troubleshooting after all, and it lets you know, A, do you have a problem like we do here, or B, are you getting the information that you're trying to get by modifying the contents in the cells? And I mentioned the reason why this is helpful is if you have a very large spreadsheet. I might have a couple hundred, a couple thousand rows of information. So I'd have to scroll up and down. Okay, did that cell, let's see, did that cell G400 change? Nope, it didn't. I'm going to scroll back up to cell G6. Let me make my change. Oh, let me scroll back down. So with this watch window, you can have it open, and you can really be looking at cells from throughout your spreadsheet just within this little window. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we see that this changed as well. Of course, you can choose that you want to delete something from here, delete something from here, and again, it floats around, or you could dock it to the top. It all depends on how much real estate you have and how you like to work. This is the watch window. You can toggle it on and off, just like this. Calculation is going to be a little bit difficult to see. It goes off the edge of your screen. It is the same thing that we had when we went into our Excel options here under formulas. That was this, workbook calculation, automatic except for data tables, or manual. This is the same thing, just lets you know, do I want to calculate my sheet now? Do I want to wait until later? So this calculate button really allows you to make sure you refresh your information so that you have the most up-to-date data reflected in your spreadsheet. So because you can have data spanning workbooks, worksheets, this calculate button allows you to choose, right now I want to calculate it and make sure the data that I'm looking at as a result of all my formulas here are accurate based on the source. So our spreadsheet is accurate as far as the formulas go. But what happens when someone else gets in here and starts entering order information? How can we make sure that the data is intact and it is correct? That's where our data validation comes in. Here on our data ribbon, we have a couple choices with data validation. We can actually have a nice dialog box that pops up with an error if someone breaks the rules. We can even have a list of information that someone can choose from instead of typing from scratch. So let's first of all test for our quantity. If someone's putting an order in there, we don't want them to put something that equals 0 in there, right? It needs to be greater than 0. Here's our data validation dialog box. By default, hey, we allow anything. Do we want a whole number, only decimals, date, time? Do we want to limit the amount of characters in a cell? Maybe we are entering in the state and we are using the 2-character state code, OHCANY, and we don't want NYC in there. In our situation, we're doing quantity, so whole number makes sense. Ignore blank, sure. Or we could have it no blank cells allowed in there. Our data between, equal to, not equal to, we want greater than 0. It's a pretty simple logical command, but it needs to be a whole number greater than 0. Well, what's our input message? This is not doing data validation. This is just giving the people an idea of what they're supposed to do in this cell when their pointer hovers over that. We'll come back to that. Here's our error alert. Show error alert after invalid data is entered. Yeah. Do we want an icon here? Yeah, we want the stop icon. What would our title be? How about invalid data? Something that users would understand. Values must be greater than 0. All right, so it'll say stop. The title will just be invalid data, and specifically values must be greater than 0. Okay, so let's try it out. What's 0? Enter. Ooh, value must be greater than 0. Invalid data, everything we did there. We want to retry that? Okay, we'll put a 5 in there. It's fine. All right, we try to put text in there. It says no, because we said we're only going to accept whole numbers. Retry, put a 5 back in there. Let's go back into data validation here, and I just want to show you that input message. This is an input message. Please enter a quantity greater than 0. Okay, there we go. The title, this is an input message. Please enter a quantity greater than 0. Goes away, we click it again, and it tells us. Takes up a lot of real estate space here, so you're going to have to evaluate, hey, do my users need this extra information? If so, make it as clear as possible so that you don't waste their time, and hey, you don't waste your own time for putting this information in here. All right, we also could create a list here. We'll go back to settings. In our SKU, any value, we'd like to create a list of information. Now, you might recall we had this inventory tab with all sorts of data. We can't go to that tab. Good thing I knew that. I ended up putting this information down here. I copied it down here. You have millions of cells available to you in Excel, so you could, well, actually millions of rows and thousands of columns. So you could actually put this range far, far away so no one would ever see it and no one would ever come across it. I'm going to collapse this. This is the source for my range. I'll choose OK. Scroll back up to where we were, and here is our list. Now my users, it still might be difficult because they might not have all these SKUs memorized. Hopefully they have some sort of reference so they know what it is. But just for the purpose of this exercise, isn't that a lot easier to be able to change the SKU? When you click outside the cell, the arrow goes away. Make another selection. There we go. We got lots of tennis rackets in here, evidently. There we go. There's our bat and glove. We also have circle invalid data as a selection here. Before we circle invalid data, we have to indicate what invalid data is. So let's go back. We're in the quantity field again. We want a whole number. This time we want it between 1 and, let's say we don't sell any more than 50 of a product. Okay. Here's the thing. If there's a check mark in Show Error Alert, we're always going to get that dialog box that tells the user, no, that's wrong, try this. So we'll never have invalid data entered into our cells. So we'll remove the check mark here. We'll choose OK. 15 meets the criteria. 51 doesn't meet the criteria. Let's go back and choose Circle Invalid Data. There we go. And of course, you can clear your validation circles. I do want to point out that all of the invalid data in your spreadsheet will be circled at once when you choose Circle Invalid Data, and all of your circles will be removed if I had more than one. But if I were to change this back to 12 and then break the rules again, whoops, it's not going to recircle that information. So this isn't a way to indicate to you immediately, hey, there's errors in my spreadsheet. It's something that you have to think about, go out and seek to see where your invalid data does exist. That's why sometimes the dialog boxes are a better way, because you're preventing bad data from even getting into your spreadsheet. But sometimes in the workflow, you have to allow bad data so you can get through a whole task, a whole piece of the work, and then you can go back, test the information, and see if there was a problem. Of course, a lot of you probably are dealing with spreadsheets that have been created previously, and they're chocked full of data, so you can't prevent bad data. Instead, you just have to set up some of these data validation rules and then test the information to see if it is correct. Our goal, of course, is to make sure that our spreadsheets are full of data integrity. Garbage in, garbage out, as they always say, and we want to prevent that, or at least reduce it as much as we possibly can. We were all about data integrity here. We made sure that we could audit our formulas. We traced the precedents, the dependents. We even opened up that watch window so we could see what was happening to a formula that was perhaps far away within our spreadsheet. Not only did we do that, but we even limited the type of data that we allowed into our spreadsheet. We created a dialog box via the data validation command that told our users, actually, hey, values must be greater than 0. We also were able to create a drop-down list, which would, of course, prevent bad data entry, because everybody who's entering data into that spreadsheet can actually know what it is they're supposed to type and even select it instead of having to attempt to type in one of those nasty SKU numbers. All of this is so that your spreadsheets have valid information, so that when you're creating those reports or making those analyses, that you know, hey, I'm basing this off of good, clean information. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.